Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. I mean, I'm a member of the media, but I think there's taking it too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when 9/11 happened, and there were
Yeah.
papers printing pictures of people jumping out of the building. Like that's
Yeah.
messed up. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Yeah, but
That's really messed up.
Josh, it is messed up. But the thing is, and okay, I mean, I'm I'm a my degree is in history. I almost have a master's degree in history. The way you remember things is to remember the horror of them, and the thing that makes you remember them sometimes is seeing something as unimaginable as people jumping out of a 1,000-foot tall building.
Yeah.
It's like the Kennedy assassination. I just watched on Netflix a free advertising. I just watched a documentary on John Kennedy, and I think because there were so many interviews and they had a lot of inside stuff, they did not show the Zapruder film. They did not show Kennedy being assassinated, but everybody remembers the assassination, and one of the reasons they remember it so starkly is because you saw, his head come apart.
Yeah.
Right.
And you'll never that is iconic. You will never forget it.
Yeah.
And sometimes now I don't agree with this. It's a plane crash. The problem is that people haven't even been notified that their families are dead, and they're showing pictures
Yeah.
of people laying on the ground. It's a
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So there should be some decorum. But again, this is people, with their phones taking pictures and tweeting them out.
Yeah. I don't know. I just have a problem with it.
I understand.
It bothers me when I see that kind of thing that people are tweeting that out.
But before we went live, because we just went live, I was talking about the locomotive crash a few years ago, and it took the lives of former NHL players like Ruslan Saleh and Josef Vasicek, and a couple of former Leafs, and Igor Korolev and Alexander Karpatsev, who were coaches, and Brad McCrimmon, was the coach of the team.
Pavel Demitra.
Pavel Demitra as well. I mean, a number of players that people would remember from their careers in the NHL, and the plane that the plane crash, the plane that they flew was a pretty archaic plane that was had some bad safety records. And there was an interview on HBO's Real Sports with the Russian minister and a couple other people and higher ups in the KHL that said after this crash that they were going to start to use Western planes and that travel would be much, much better. And they interviewed, in a follow-up of the story last year, they interviewed players who were in the KHL with they used to keep their identities secret, and said they were still flying the same planes.
Yeah, they are.
So I mean, you think about the chilling effect that would have on the KHL, and if you've noticed, I mean, we expected a lot more for lack of a better word, defections back to the KHL. And if anything, I mean, you see some of these Finnish players like Kontiola, who came over to the Leafs, and Laterra, who came over to the St. Louis Blues. They were in the KHL for a few years and decided to take their shot at North America. And I would think that these concerns are part of the reason, on top of being handed their salary in brown paper bags. I would think that the travel concerns would be a part of their decision making.
Yeah. Plus the war that's probably going to happen now with everything going on in Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, it's a very tenuous situation when you're talking about Ukraine and you're talking about. I mean, the concern during the Olympics about Sochi, there were separatists, there were people in the hills outside of the Olympics that they were concerned about the safety of the Olympics. Well, there's a KHL team going into Sochi this year.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a KHL team in the Ukraine, remember, too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's Kiev. I think it's
yeah.
Kiev.
Imagine, getting on a bus and having to go through all that. Like, I wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, I actually think there's a couple teams. I think that there was a KHL team in Donetsk, but I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know I know that they've moved some franchises around. I'll take a look, but
Yeah, it's just freaky what's going on. Oh, by the way, Ack, I know we're live, but I guess it doesn't matter if I say this out loud. Alan May said he'd join us next week.
Nice.
Uh, I'm going to get him set up on Google Plus and all that jazz on
Great.
his home computer, and he said that that'll come on with us.
cool.
Great.
Talk
That's
caps, talk about. He can talk league stuff too. He follows everything.
For sure, of course.
You can ask him about Ovechkin and the new coach, and
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
I'm trying to get Petrillo or what's her name, Storino to join us as well at some point. So we get some pretty faces on here, and not just our pretty faces.
I was gonna say, come on, aren't we enough?
Yeah, we need women. We need women on the show.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. I got a couple too that I'm talking to. Couple of them. Couple of women. Sounds great.
Worst comes to worst, I could just,
Yeah, no, we don't want to do that. No good can come of that.
And no more wigs, Josh. No more wigs.
Yeah. Got it.
No, for sure. Wow. All right.
I'll just wear it off camera.
I'm sure.
Okay. What the heck? I can bring my notes up here. I'm going to start with my blog.
Yes, I have some thoughts.
I thought you would. Cool. Not much else
So
going
I
on.
am talking KHL. My cousin Chad Billings just got signed by CSKA Moscow. Thought that was cool.
Wow.
CSKA, that's yeah. KHL
That's not Dynamo. I think there are two franchises in. Yeah, there's four. Actually, four. I think in Moscow. I think. I'm trying to look up the list of franchises here.
Bill Meltzer's our guy who would give us that in a second.
Yeah, Oh, here we go. There's.
Okay. Let us begin.
I wonder, is Keenan going back to Russia?
Yeah, from the interview that he gave after he won the Coach of the Year, it sounded like he was going back, unless he got some kind of thing from an NHL team, which we know he didn't.
I'm going to just take a quick drink of courage here because I am tired. Man.
Mexican Coke?
No, we're going with the Gold Peak iced tea today, which is
there you go.
The best iced tea available.
Well, I went with my my wheatgrass, but I already finished it.
I go with water.
No cleaning
water.
No cleaning fish on the show today.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yes, that is a University of Delaware football helmet. Thanks, guys. Okay, here we go. Are we set? It's the 17th of July.
Thursday.
Finally. This week had like 4 Tuesdays to me. This is the longest week. I don't know why. I'm telling you, man, when your kids start doing like events that start at 8 in the morning and end at 9:30 at night, the weeks just go forever. So
I actually think it's depressing that we're less than 2 weeks away from the beginning of August. This summer has gone really fast.
Oh, it's flying. It's flying. It's flying. That's crazy. All right, here goes. Thursday, July 17th. Smiles. Hello, Hockey World. It is Thursday, July 17th, 2014.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I'm Eklund. And yeah, it is kind of somber. We just had a plane crash and everything like that. So we've been talking about that a little bit this morning. And the media, what they're, not just the media, but people in general. We live in a world now where, you're going to see all this stuff. And everything's tweeted out and all that stuff. So, yeah, so we're going to try to get you away from that because if you're watching 24-hour news, we don't want to be, depressed all the time. So try to get you away from that today. And what better to get you away from all of that than to talk about a Dion Phaneuf rumor. I can't think of anything better. Just when you thought this was done, just when you thought this whole thing could possibly be dead and just gone, I wake up this morning to a text saying you got to look into this, and I look into it, and sure enough, there seems to be something to it. There are preliminary talks, or maybe they're not. They were preliminary as of last night. Maybe they're liminary now, or post-liminary.
Post-liminary.
But they are preliminary. They are that are going on between the Tampa Bay Lightning of all teams and the Toronto Maple Leafs. What do we want to get out of Tampa? You guys are the GM of Toronto now. I'm going to make you guys. I'm going to make Mike and Josh. You guys are sharing the duties as GM because I'm a president that can't decide. So I'm going to be like I'm going to give you guys the duties, and now you guys are going to talk about what you're going to ask for out of Tampa. And I'm going to play Yzerman, so I'll be really happy. And I will tell you what I think. So go ahead, make me an offer. What's going to happen?
Josh, you go first.
I mean, I know who they're going to ask for, but they're not going to get him. And that's
Drouin.
Thank you, Drouin.
As Steve Yzerman, I would like to. Actually, I could wear an Yzerman.
There's no way Tampa's trading Drouin. It's just not going to happen. Not going to happen at all. Besides that, I mean, they do have a lot of good young talent. I mean, I like Tyler Johnson. I like Palat. But I don't know if they'd be willing to give up one of those two guys either. To be honest with you, I don't think they're going to get a whole lot for Dion Phaneuf. I mean, everyone knows that Toronto wants to deal with Dion, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to give up for him or what. I mean, I know what Toronto's going to ask for, but is Tampa really going to be willing to give it anything up? I don't.
You make a strong case, GM Josh.
Oh, thank you. I mean, the Leafs want to move Dion, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows that.
The Lightning are actually talking to them about it. So that's the thing. The Lightning are actually talking about it, which I have confirmed. So,
okay.
Not that I'm related to anybody there, but I have confirmed that they are actually talking to them.
The Leafs want to move. The Leafs want to move Dion if they can get fair value for him. I don't think I think they will keep him if they get lowballed. But I think if there's an offer there that they say, okay, this is going to benefit us down the road, then they would do it. They're not dumping Dion Phaneuf. I mean, Dion Phaneuf, I'll get arguments from a lot of people, is worth the $7 million that he's being paid. That's not the problem here. The problem is I think the Leafs still want to create this culture change that they've talked about, and I think that doing that entails moving Phaneuf on to another place and bringing in a significant change to the core of the roster. Now, if you look, and this is why I sort of shook my head at, and I'm not disputing your sources. This is not a good fit because
I agree.
You look at Tampa right now. They added Stralman. They have Victor Hedman at $4 million for another 3 years. They traded for Jason Garrison. They have Matt Carl, who I think is very overpaid at $5.5 million. I mean, he was a guy, as you know, in Philadelphia who benefited from playing with Chris Pronger, and they bought into that with that free agent contract, and I think now they realize that they got Matt Carl and not the guy who was playing with Chris Pronger. Eric Brewer's basically on his last legs, and then they have some young guys like Gudis and Barbario who are not bad, but they're young players just starting to come into the league. Short of them trading, Matt Carl, and I don't see why the Leafs would want Matt Carl. He's not as good a defenseman as Phaneuf. He's only being paid $1.5 million less than Phaneuf. He's got 4 years left in his deal, and Phaneuf has got 7.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with what Josh was saying. It's got to be that they're looking for, a Drouin or a Palat or a Johnson. They're, if I'm Yzerman, I'm obviously Stamkos, Filppula, Callahan are off the table. I don't understand why you would want to trade any one of these young guys who you have locked up for 3 years at around $3.3 million. The Leafs aren't going to take Alex Killorn or J.T. Brown for Dion Phaneuf. So it has to be that they're either aiming at a prospect like Drouin, or a first, their first round pick is not going to be that good. So it's either Drouin or this doesn't add up, and I'm eating in the doesn't add up territory.
Well, I will give you a little hint into this that I got today. Of what I can say about it is that the Leafs are putting another player into this deal as well. So this is not just Dion Phaneuf involved here. So this would be a bigger trade. Not just some of that I think is to take Dion's salary. You've got to sort of give something up as well. I think part of that is that, but like he is a good player, a solid player.
Kadri.
Yeah, it could be. I don't,
Well, okay, and I'm going down I'm drinking the Kool-Aid here, and I'm going down the road.
Okay.
Adam Proto has written 2 articles regarding Stamkos in Toronto. We discussed. Yes, I know. Sorry, Josh. We discussed it. We discussed it on a previous webcast. I'm not saying, this makes sense. But if they're throwing another player in the deal and it's somebody like Kadri or somebody like Jake Gardner or another young player, there's nobody else on this team other than Steven Stamkos that's worth that much to the Leafs. That's all I'm saying. They may be throwing in their 2015 first round pick. It might be a 3 or 4 player. And this is what I'm going to write about today with the signings that they made yesterday. And they were depth signings. Peter Holland, former first round pick of the Anaheim Ducks. Carter Ashton, former first round pick of the Lightning. They signed him to 1- and 2-year deals. The Leafs have a little over $11 million in salary cap room. They have 3 players left to sign. So after that, they're going to have about $5 million under the cap. The Leafs don't usually have $5 million under the cap. Some move is in the offing here.
Yeah, they're setting up something. They're setting up something for sure, because you have to set up big things. If you're gonna go after a Stamkos player, even a couple years down the line, you have to set this up. I don't agree with you in terms of that there aren't players that are worth Kadri and Phaneuf on Tampa, beyond Drouin and Stamkos, which are the untouchables in my mind, as far as the forwards go. There have to be other players there that are worth something to them. Josh, you seem very annoyed.
Yeah, I am actually.
Go ahead.
Okay, here comes a rant. If Steve Yzerman trades Steven Stamkos, he's gonna get fired. I think that would be the stupidest move ever for the Tampa Bay Lightning and their fans to deal a guy like Steven Stamkos, who comes around in the NHL, once every couple of years. It's hard to find a player like Steven Stamkos. I honestly believe Steve Yzerman will not deal him. If he deals him, like I said, he deserves to be fired.
Well, here's the thing. Before I let you go, Mike, right after this. If he deals Steven Stamkos, he's not going to get fired, and this is why. Because if he deals Steven Stamkos, it's coming from the owner. You don't make a trade like that. You can't.
The fans will be all pissed off. But
if they know something,
how many Stamkos jerseys are in that arena?
I am not.
They cannot deal him. I mean, that's one guy is extremely untouchable. They're not moving him.
The only thing worse than trading Steven Stamkos is getting nothing for Steven Stamkos. If 2 years down the road he walks as an unrestricted free agent, which I'm not saying is a likely scenario, because I think if they find out that they can't get him locked up on a long-term deal before next July, that Yzerman will have to trade him. It's the lesser of two evils. You either get nothing for him because he has a no-move clause that drops in July 1st next year, and then he basically can block everything if they try to trade him at the deadline, if they know he's not going to re-sign there. They're not going to get a thing for him. They have to find out now. They have to find out sometime this year whether he's interested in spending the rest of his career and signing an 8-year max deal with Tampa Bay, or whether he wants to test the market. And if he wants to test the market, then I'm sorry, Yzerman is put in an untenable position where he has to say, okay, I need to get something for him, or I'm going to get nothing for him. And it's a bad situation, but if I'm voting on something or nothing, I'm taking something.
Yeah. No, I think that's the only way this happens. If the owners, if Stamkos has gone to the owner and said, listen, 2 years from now I'm going to go sign in Toronto. I want you guys to know that now, because I want you guys to do whatever you have to do. I want to be fair. You guys have been great to me. I loved it here, and players have done this. This is not uncharted territory. I don't think that's happening right now, but that's the only way that this does happen. Josh.
If Tampa trades Steven Stamkos and I'm a season ticket holder, I tell the Tampa Bay Lightning ticket office to go F themselves, and I'm never buying another fucking ticket again. Oh, I didn't mean to use that word. Sorry.
Shinny.
Yeah. Sorry. Just getting animated here because I
like it.
I cannot
okay.
see him leaving Tampa.
Well,
because everybody, that whole fan base is going to tell them to go, themselves, because they're not going to buy another ticket if you deal their franchise player. Everybody loves that kid in Tampa. He's the reason why everyone goes to games, to see games whenever Tampa is at home. He's the reason. He's the attraction. You dealt St. Louis last year, which I still think, obviously you wanted out, but I don't know if you got enough for him.
Got a lot for St. Louis. They did really well with that one.
Yeah, they did.
But, you deal Stamkos, and it's it's the FU to fans, really. It's ridiculous.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Okay. Josh, right now the thing is, if Tampa ownership is in the position of we either have to move him or within the next 2 years pay him max money, which
it's not about the money.
No. I know, but I'm saying based on, and he might take, if in Tampa he might take a discount to because of the state tax situation. Because taking 80% of max money there compared to max money someplace else, is essentially the same thing. But if he wants to play someplace else and he's told them, I'm gonna go, nothing against you, but I've given you 8 years of my career. I was drafted first pick. I've played here ever since I was an 18-year-old. I've scored 50 goals here. I've played the best hockey of my career here. Now, I'm gonna go where I want to go. I'm gonna do a LeBron James, and I'm gonna go back to Toronto, or even if he wants to go someplace else.
Yeah, but if you're dealing a guy like Steven Stamkos, you expect a Claude Giroux in return. You expect a guy who is just as has enough star power like a Steven Stamkos. You don't deal him for 3 mediocre guys. I don't see it happening. And if Tampa does do that deal, that franchise is good as gone.
When have you seen in recent NHL history a star player being traded for another star player? It doesn't happen.
I'm saying it needs to happen if they want to keep the team at Tampa.
But if it's going to happen, if that's going to happen, it's going to happen now, because it's not going to happen right now. Stamkos still has 2 years on this contract right now.
Right.
If Stamkos has said I'm not going to stick around, which I don't think he has, but we're just playing out scenarios here, because the only scenario where I see him, and I am completely with you, Josh, that they're not trading him any way, shape, or form. If I was a Lightning fan, I feel the same way.
Move the team out of Tampa if you deal him.
However, no, it's not that bad. However, the thing is this: if he's leaving anyway, you have to be proactive on it. You can't fall into the situation you were with St. Louis. They actually, they did an unbelievable job, and they got lucky because the Rangers went to the Stanley Cup Finals, and that helped them in the deal for St. Louis, the way it worked out.
They got 2 first-round picks and Callahan for a 39-year-old Marty St. Louis. I don't think Steve Yzerman can really complain.
Yeah. And they re-signed Callahan, so that turned out to be a hell of a deal. But
if Joe Thornton was younger, 5-6 years younger, I could see him going for Stamkos. As someone who you have a little star power with, that people are not going to be as upset that, hey, I got to go get a. Well, Joe Thornton's a bad example because he's old. He's now old, but he's been playing in the league since he was 18. But you need to, honestly, the fans in Tampa will not put up with that. I guarantee you. I guarantee you they'll be pissed off.
They won't put up with it unless it'll be sold to them. It'll be sold to them like we have no choice in the matter. We are stuck. We are this is where we're at now. Yeah. And it's not. I'm not saying it's a good situation at all. I'm not saying it's even likely at all. I'm just saying that's how it has to that's the only way this happens. And I definitely don't think that the guy I'm talking to today about Phaneuf and Tampa has anything to do with Stamkos also. So
right, and
we're just talking scenarios here because these are two teams that we've talked about and we've talked about the connection here, obviously, Mike.
The only other player I can see on the roster that the Leafs might be aiming for would be Hedman. Because Hedman, former second pick overall, he's just starting to come into his own, which would make me question why Tampa would be interested in trading him. I know that right now there is a great movement. I mean, if you look at the Leafs, they have a sizable chunk of American players. They have a lot of Canadians, in spite of the fact that Don Cherry doesn't think that they draft Canadians. But with William Nylander. And with a number of their prospects, their pipeline is in Sweden, and Hedman is a Swede and probably one of the best Swedish defensemen out there. And they may want a guy who's more of a veteran, even though he's not that old, but a 23, 24-year-old Swede to be, more of Boreas Salming was there, and he was the idol of Swedish hockey players.
Oh, for sure.
Hedman is. I don't think he's at that point in his career, but I think he might be a magnet and might be something that would help the Leafs even become more popular in Sweden and draw them in terms of being the go-to place rather than the Detroit Red Wings for Swedish hockey.
Well, no, Hedman is an interesting player too because he's got one of these situations where, he should maybe be further along, but he really last year showed like he was about to come further along. So it's really hard to say. This is Hedman's break or break season to me. Like this is it. Like if Hedman comes through with a big year this year, then he's an absolute star. This is when you'll see it. But if he comes back, and looks like a 3-4 defenseman, because he really remember he was taken right behind Tavares. So this guy has to be a 1-2 defenseman. If he's I don't know if he's a 1-2 or if he's a 3-4 yet. I think that's what we don't know about Hedman. But he's young, and young defensemen are always tricky. Let's get off this topic. Let's go to Dude Mathias, who in the chat room said that according to a Swedish newspaper, the Habs are offering Plekanec, Gallagher, Emlin, and a second for Bogosian and Evander Kane. Any chance that this is true? There's always a chance it's true, but
I heard Gallagher's untouchable in Montreal. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
They will not move Gallagher. Yeah. Plekanec, Emlin, possibly the pick, but I don't see Gallagher being offered by the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, especially coming off that playoff year. Honestly, Gallagher and maybe in a dream scenario, maybe the Canadiens say to themselves, okay, Gallagher's value is never going to be higher than it is right now after the way he played in the playoffs. But he is Montreal's answer to Brad Marchand. He is a pain in the butt to play against. He's annoying and he has talent. So he's not just a professional disturber. He's actually somebody who I think can score 20 to 25 goals, get underneath the other team's skin, be an effective playoff performer. That's a type of player you don't give up. So I don't know. I don't think that makes sense.
But wait a second here. When is a 20 to 25 goal scorer untouchable?
I'm untouchable.
Josh is saying he's untouchable. Gallagher.
I know that they love him in Montreal.
They love him, and I'm not saying
a lot. It would take a lot for Montreal to move. I'm
not saying you're wrong at all, because I've heard the same thing. They're absolutely. But this is another one of my cases.
Another huge fan favorite too. I heard his jerseys were one of the best sellers last year in Montreal.
Yeah, but what is he? But what is he really? He's not a star. He's a solid player who's going to
He does a little of everything, Eck. I think
he does, and he's fast. He's got speed. He's tough. He's a good kid. I really like him, but
he's being paid $685,000, and he scored 20 goals last year, and he scored 11 points in the playoffs. Players like that are invaluable because you're paying them nothing, and they're giving you a level of performance that a $3.5, $4 million player might not give you. So and he's 22 years old. Now,
imagine he was a little taller. Jeez.
Now, granted, Evander Kane is 23. Bogosian's not much older, so I mean they would be getting youth back.
Yeah, I mean Evander Kane. I mean, I guess it just depends what you think of as in terms of what you're trying to get. Like this is, like Gallagher was my favorite player for the Canadiens last year in the playoffs to watch. He's a great kid, great player. He's a really like, he reminds you of like, you know, a better version of like a Justin Williams type player, but just you know, and has huge upsides to him. Meanwhile, Justin Williams to stay in Philadelphia with the Stanley Cup, and that's always a good thing to see for the Flyers. Flyers fans love nothing more than that. And he's also down the shore, 3 blocks away from where we go at the shore with the Stanley Cup today too. So Justin is rubbing the Stanley Cup in our faces today.
So when does Carter and Richard show up with it? There you go.
Yeah, they don't show up with it here. But no, I'm just saying that I think that I don't know. I just don't see Gallagher as an untouchable player. Like I mean, someone says Lucic. Okay, Lucic is 25 goals. Lucic is a totally different bird than Gallagher.
I mean, I don't put him in the stratosphere of being untouchable like you put a franchise player like Tavares or Stamkos. You know, high pick, a number one pick, a high pick, a player who's a centerpiece for a number of years. But when a guy comes in, he's a late round pick, and he taps into the emotion of a fan base, and he also produces, and he's also popular. Those guys are like currency. You don't move them. You're committing franchise suicide if you move, even if you're getting players back who.
If you're getting Evander Kane and Bogosian,
you don't know. Well, the thing is, we even talked about it.
It's a crapshoot right now with Evander Kane.
Yeah, you don't know what the dynamic of Evander Kane being in Montreal. I mean, it could be a raging success. It could be a disaster. I mean, you don't know with his situation, with his lack of discipline when it comes to social media, his interaction with the franchise that drafted him. I mean, you don't know if this guy is just, he's aggravated at his scenario in Winnipeg and just wants to get out, or if this is the dynamic that he's going to have with every team throughout the rest of his career. That's the risk that you take. That's why a team like Toronto or a team like New York in a monstrous media market, and no media market is more, heated and vociferous than Montreal. You put him in that, it's a potential powder keg, and I don't know. I wouldn't do it.
It is. But people said the same thing about PK Subban, and it's working out really well there. So it can work. It can work out. I mean, PK had.
But do you really want to bring that into your locker room in Montreal? I mean, Echo, I love Evander Kane, and I think he's got so much upside, but he's just getting into too much trouble the last little while, and I think you bring something like that in your locker room, you might be asking for trouble.
I could have said the same thing about Jeff Carter, Jeff Carter now has won 2 Stanley Cups and is turning in this year, I believe, is now probably challenging Getzlaf as one of the best centers in the Western Conference. So,
yeah.
I mean, but I could have said the same exact thing about Jeff Carter when he was here. I mean, you have to look at the upsides of these guys, and it doesn't always go down the drain. Sometimes they do actually mature. Sometimes they do actually grow up. They're really young. I mean, Evander Kane came into the league very young.
And Kane is reacting right now in Winnipeg like Carter did in Columbus. The frustration of being a place where he didn't want to be, and we all know that Columbus is a franchise that is on the upward swing. I like the direction that Columbus is going in, but Jeff Carter didn't want to be there because he got traded like 1 or 2 days before the no trade clause in his contract got kicked in with the Flyers. So he went someplace he didn't want to go to. Kane apparently does not want to be in Winnipeg. Now, so it's very possible that he gets traded someplace else, and he's so glad that he's there rather than in Winnipeg that he settles down and he becomes, just a solid teammate. But there is a possibility there that this is his dynamic. That he's going to be that guy on the balcony in Vegas with the "show me the money" with the money spread out in his hands, and that's that does not go well in the NHL.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I agree, but I think that I just think there's a little bit of I don't know. It's the same thing I talked about yesterday, so I don't want to repeat it. But it's the Montreal revaluing their players right now, especially because they just had this great run to the playoffs. Montreal in this next season, are they going to have another great run of the playoffs? It's really hard to say. I mean, they had a lot of things fall right for them, and they lost Gerard Gallant, who was a big part of their locker room. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I wanted to talk a little bit about David Booth too, because I got some news about him last night. We've been waiting for news about David Booth and hearing that the Rangers are serious about David Booth. This could fit. This could fit with the Rangers. They could use a sniper. They could. I mean, if he's healthy, Booth fits perfectly with the Rangers. He's not the only team, of course. Phoenix is also interested, but I even heard Boston. But I like the fit of Booth and the Rangers. Josh, what are your thoughts on that one?
Well, David Booth, he's a center, isn't he not?
Winger.
Okay. I was going to say if he was a center, they just got Lombardi. I don't know if they'd want Booth, but yeah, I guess it's a possibility. David
they have a
Booth,
hard time scoring goals. The Rangers do. The Rangers have a hard time.
Is David Booth a top 6 forward? I don't see him as a top 6 forward.
No.
Could be. I mean, if he's healthy, he definitely could be. I mean, on the Rangers, he is. I think he's a top 6 forward on the Rangers. I think if he's healthy, he's probably one of their most skilled.
I mean, he's had one good year, in his career, and that was 08-09 when he had 31 goals, 60 points on the Florida Panthers. But since then, he hasn't been much of a scoring forward. I mean, he only played 28 games. Actually, he had the 60 points in 72 games. So I mean, that's almost a point per game. After that, he played 28 games the following year and missed a good chunk of time. 16 points in 28 games. The year after that, he went down to 40 points in 82. And then since then, he hasn't played an 82-game season in a long time. But, I don't see David Booth as a top 6 forward. In my eyes, I see him as a third liner. Does that help the third line in New York? Absolutely. But I don't know. I mean, they got Lombardi. I guess it'd be Lombardi and Booth on the line together in New York.
He's never been the same since the Mike Richards hit. His production and health have gone downhill, and his dependability offensively have gone downhill. I mean, looking at the Rangers, I mean, right now they're around $13 million under the cap, but they have 4 RFAs in Brassard, Chris Kreider, Zuccarello, and John Moore. Most of that money is going to be allocated toward those
most
guys.
of that money is, and Kreider and Zuccarello are the future of that franchise. I mean, those are 2 major players for them. I mean, there's no question in my mind that they have to maintain those 2 guys. But
that's probably long-term deals for both of those guys, Zach.
They're going to try at least. That's for sure.
I think David Booth would be a good fit with the Red Wings if that was ever a possibility. Obviously, being a Detroit boy, I know that might be a good fit for him. I mean, I know in Detroit they could use some good third line, fourth line guys.
Well, I know we mentioned Nashville in connection with Booth, and that makes a lot of sense because of the connection with USA Hockey and David Poile. I mean. And I still think Nashville needs to add players who have some offensive ability and add some depth. And with the additions of Ribeiro and Roy, if they can get Booth as well, and if they can get him for a similar contract like they got the other 2, around $1 million, then that would be probably a good depth signing. And that I think Booth still has the speed to play the type of game that Laviolette wants to play. I mean, he would be a good addition with the Rangers. I just don't know whether they can sign him for a cost-effective deal and get those other guys signed as well. So it would be a tight fit.
That's the issue, right? As far as Del Zotto, the other guy I talked about today, the latest word is that the Ottawa Senators are very interested in Michael Del Zotto. And that's coming from a couple of very good sources up in Ottawa. I don't. We know Ottawa's looking for forwards. They're also trying to fill their center spot. Excuse me. But they're not. They're unable to get Vinny Lecavalier to go there. So I think that at this point, they're looking at Del Zotto as a possibility. The Rangers have also looked at Del Zotto. I don't see the Rangers bringing Del Zotto back in.
No.
And the Red Wings are still very much in on Del Zotto, which is a little bit surprising, but not crazy.
Ottawa makes sense in the respect that they really don't have a solid offensive defenseman other than Erik Karlsson. Every one of the other ones, Cowan, Mathot, Chris Phillips is over 35, Wirkosh. I mean, he has some offensive ability, but most of their defensemen are I would say stay-at-home types or defensive or tough defensemen, not a guy who you'd put on the power play. And Del Zotto is a power play defenseman. So, I mean, I think that, he's probably still has a number of teams showing interest in him because, teams want to add defensive depth and he has some offensive ability. But if you want a defensive defenseman, Del Zotto, you're running far away from Del Zotto. He's not very good in his own zone. I think his availability and where he goes is also affecting what Toronto may do with Cody Franzen because he's a similar type defenseman, although Franzen, I believe, is a right-hand shot and Del Zotto is a left-hand shot. So I think we're going to see some moves with these guys in the next week or so with Franzen's arbitration hearing. And Del Zotto, I'm sure that he probably wants to get something locked down before the end of the month.
Right. He definitely does. He's going to sign sooner than that. I think Del Zotto will sign by week's end. That's my prediction based on some things I've heard, and I think Ottawa's got a good shot at that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find out though. We'll find out for sure. The Maple Leafs, and someone brought this up in the chat room. I appreciate it. I was going to mention this anyway. Not that we talk a little bit too much Toronto in there, but today, the word comes out that among the top 50 most valuable franchises in sports, the Maple Leafs are number 26 with a bullet. And they're worth $1.15 billion, which is just $1.149844 billion more than HockeyBuzz is worth. So, but yeah, there you go. So the most valuable franchise in sports, obviously.
Or in hockey, yes.
In hockey, and one of and number 26. Am I mistaken, or were there more hockey teams on this list in the past? I thought I remembered there being more than one hockey team on the top 50 most.
I don't. I mean, I know that Montreal was. I mean, there may have been others in the top 50, but I knew that the Leafs were the most valuable of all the franchises, and I didn't remember that they were the only hockey team in the top 50. But maybe a couple have dropped off. But I can't imagine there'd be a significant drop off for a team like the Rangers or the Canadiens. So
no, I don't think they've dropped off. I think what's happened is the other franchises in other sports have gotten more valuable. I think that's what's happening.
And the contributing
rate.
Yeah, and the contributing factors to that are the $2 billion that was spent on the LA Clippers, and like 500, I think it was 550 or 600 million dollars for the Milwaukee Bucks, which could arguably be the worst NBA franchise in terms of management and market size. I mean, so I'm sure probably the Yankees are at the top of the list. I haven't read the Forbes article, but I would assume that the Yankees are probably the most expensive franchise. And you have the Leafs in the Toronto market and the surrounding area, where I believe it's anywhere from 10 to 12 million people, and most of them are hockey fans. So, and the value of that franchise has probably grown exponentially since the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund sold it to Bell Globe Media and Rogers. So, I mean, I think eventually, like we said in a previous webcast, that ownership group is going to split because it's basically been a marriage of convenience. Because they didn't want the other one getting complete control, but eventually I don't think that ownership group is going to stay together, and either one is going to buy the other out, or there's going to be some compromise. And we were talking about the Toronto expansion team or Markham expansion team. That could be the solution. But I mean they're the most valuable franchise with a bullet, and that means we talk about them on HockeyBuzz. On the HockeyBuzzCast every day, right?
Yeah, we do talk about them a lot, and and that's we also have two Toronto people with us on this podcast every day, too. So that's a good thing. But it got me thinking. If I was to buy an NHL franchise, not that I can afford to, but or anybody could afford to, but I think taking out all the other stuff, taking out the fans' value, the value in the city, like the Toronto is obviously valuable because of the merchandising and the whole 9 yards in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
What franchise would you buy right now? Like, what in your opinion is the best NHL franchise? Like, what, just in terms of winning? Now, just not in terms of value and anything else, but what if you were saying I want to win I want to win the most Stanley Cups most Stanley Cups I can. I'm going to own this franchise for a decade, for 10 years. What franchise are you buying today?
Right now, the awesome
Chicago or LA?
Yeah.
Chicago or LA, Josh? You think so? I mean, aren't you buying hot? I mean, that's a little bit. Aren't they going to go down a little bit from this point?
Well, I will say this. I mean, reports already came out about the LA Kings and Schultz shopping to see if he'd be able to sell the team. I mean, there's a team that could be available for ownership right now. Obviously, after the whole thing went down with the LA Clippers, and he saw how much they got, and I guess he was maybe hoping he could get somewhere close to what the jerk got for the Clippers, even though they're still fighting. They're still fighting in courts over that, but
it might be a scenario of buy low, sell high. There, I mean, you get an opportunity to, and that team is right now at the top of the hill. I mean, they've won 2 Stanley Cups in a few years. I mean, that's pretty good. And then you look at everything, they have a lot of their players, their core players, locked up under reasonable contracts for long term.
For a long time. Yeah.
Right, and they're all relatively young, so it's like, I mean, this is not something that is going to drop off in a year or two because their players are over the age of 30. I mean, they have a chance to win a couple more Stanley Cups over the next 5 years. So, them or Chicago, and honestly, if you're talking about like best bang for the buck or buying a team that could, all of a sudden, like, you could increase the wealth of the franchise, maybe the Dallas Stars. You could probably get them pretty cheap, and if with Sagan and Spezza, with Lindy Ruff as a coach, they could increase the value of that franchise exponentially if they really start to improve and win some playoff series.
I would say a lot of people are saying the Islanders in our chat room as well. It's so hard to say, like, where the Islanders are or where they're going right now. To me, I just I don't know. Josh, you have a thought?
Well, I mean, when we're ready, I have another topic I want to bring up with you guys.
Okay, cool. Let's yeah. I mean, let's just to me this is the it's just something. I don't know I don't know what team I would go with right now, but I when I thought about this a lot, and I kind of thought Tampa might be the team I'd go with. As far as in the next 10 years, who's going to win the most Stanley Cups? I like what Tampa's doing. I like where they're heading.
Yeah, I mean, two quick things. One, I agree with Tampa after they resolve Stamkos. And
right.
Once he signed if he signed long term, then I will buy in. Until then, I think they're in flux.
Colorado's a good one too. People brought People brought Colorado up too, and they are. That is a really, to me, it was so. They came on so hard, so fast. I want to see. I think everybody's in the same boat. The one thing that Colorado has done that is unbelievable, and I'm sure you've run into this, Josh, in talking to people, is NHL franchises now are using the term, we can turn around as quickly as the Colorado Avalanche just turned around, and that's like, it's everywhere. You talk to people there, everybody, and it's as if this happens all the time. Like all the time, teams go from worst to first, like they did. It's amazing.
But they've done this twice, Zach.
Oh yeah, no.
The year that Craig Anderson played out of his mind in Colorado, the rookie year of Duchesne and O'Reilly, there when they made the playoffs, they had a really good year. It was a Cinderella year. Nobody expected them to make the playoffs, and then the following year they dropped in the tank.
Yeah.
So
That's
until
true.
They put 2 years together.
But you got to see 2 years, and I also got to see that Patrick Waugh can sustain a team over time. That his message will continue over time. Josh, you have one more topic for us?
Yeah, I want to bring up the Hall of Fame not Hall of Fame induction. Sorry, I just got a text about the Hall of Fame inductions.
No problem.
Okay, no, it's the Red Wings. I want to bring up the Red Wings. Mike Babcock spoke pretty bluntly today during an interview on Detroit Station 105.1 FM. He was on with Ryan and Rico show in the morning. I guess in the last couple hours. Here's some quotes from that interview. Mike Babcock. Here's a quote from Mike Babcock. Did we target guys? Yes. Did they come? No. But no bad contracts. Henrik Zetterberg feels as good as he has since 2008. Last year he brought nothing. Called his contract great for the cap. Said he's working with trainer Mike Barwis. Mike Babcock saying, if you don't want to be coached, don't come here. If you want to be pushed to be the best, come here. Says he's confident a contract extension will get done. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. Babcock says he and Holland are both on vacation right now. They're not talking contract, but he's confident it'll get done. Maybe FAs didn't want to come here because I'm on a one-year deal, he says. Wow,
that's pretty
about
blunt.
the perception that FAs don't want to play for him. He says, I just talked to Z the other day. Oh, no, there's no comment to that. Okay, that makes no sense. I just talked to Z the other day, and he feels as good as he has since 2008. I said that. Can't say enough positive things. No. If you don't, no, I said that already. Here's something. I think I care a lot about my players. When you care about people, you make them do it right. When you don't, and there's lots of coaches that don't, you don't have success. Sometimes it's like in your business. You go to a meeting and no one talks about the white elephant in the room. You don't have a hard meeting and everyone leaves and talks behind each other's back. That didn't happen with the Red Wings. We just have the hard meetings. We get it out front. Does it piss off people once in a while? Absolutely. But it also leads to behavioral change and getting things better. So you know what? I'm not apologizing for this stuff at all. If Ken Holland has something he wants Mike Babcock to do, when he tells me, I'll do it. If he doesn't tell me, I can't read his mind. That's kind of the way I look at it. I think it's easy to stand on the sidelines and second-guess everything all the time, and I think that's what you get paid to do. And the more controversy you can create in the media, the more they like you, and the more more bloggers have stuff, the more controversy we have. But that's all part of the sport.
Yeah, wow. I really want to play for this guy now.
Wow.
But I wanted to share that guy.
Yeah, then you wonder why they're throwing $4 million at Kyle Quincy because they can't get anybody to sign there. My God.
Holy moly. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a lot. I mean, first of all, don't blame the media because you couldn't get guys to sign there. I mean, there's no connection at all to the media, and I hate when people. That's very below Babcock to go after the media. That's not his normal memo. That tells me he's under some kind of pressure and some kind of stress there because that's not his normal. That's not where he goes.
Oh yeah.
Well, okay. This is why I wasn't totally unopposed to the Detroit Red Wings coming to the Eastern Conference, because if you look at that franchise, and I made the joke about it a few webcasts ago about Jim Nill and taking all the mojo away from the Red Wings, because it seems like Dallas has made all the good moves lately, and Detroit has made Stephen Weiss signings. But if you look at the Red Wings right now, I mean, in spite of the fact that you had some young players like Nyquist and Yurko and Tatar who came up from Grand Rapids and helped them sneak into the playoffs, the core of this team is old and crumbling. You have Datsuk, who is a phenomenal player. You have Zetterberg, who is consistently injured. So is Johan Franzen. And after that, you've got basically a core of okay players, Darren Helm, Abdul Kader. I mean, nothing that just jumps out at you. So unless Gustav Nyquist is the next Matt Sundin, I don't see that this team is on the positive track. And that's why I think that a lot of free agents didn't go there, because they don't see this team rising. They've seen this team going down.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that that's the case. I do agree with you. I think, and because it should be easier to get players to go there in the Eastern Conference because travel's a lot better and everything. But at the end of the day, when you go to the Red Wings, you are going to Babcock there or Babcock not there or there for a year. Babcock is a very powerful, all-encompassing type coach. When you go to the Red Wings, you are buying into that. You have to buy into that. So yes, not every NHL free agent, when they look at the choices between okay, I'm going to go to this team, and Babcock's way of doing things, he's a great coach, and that works really, really well when you're winning. If you're not winning, you're just a hard-ass coach that no one wants to play for. I mean, that's the bottom line. So I mean, yeah, Babcock has to be careful about this because,
i.e. Randy Carlisle. I mean,
right? Suddenly, now it is harder to get free agents, but it's not hard to get free agents there when you're in a situation, like the Red Wings have been in for many years. I mean, they still kept their playoff streak alive. So, the media stuff, that's sort of we don't live on It's so funny. I love when people say that we live on controversy.
It's a deflecting tactic, Ack. It's being used to deflect the failure of the organization to bring in the talent that they needed to be competitive this year. I know that we all there were a number of reports that said that they were in on Dan Boyle, and Dan Boyle decided to go to the Rangers, and the same reports that had the Leafs in on Dan Boyle. There were a few other players that they were trying to get that they ended up not getting, and now it's almost like they're crying over spilt milk. Play with the team that you got.
Like where you have such open communication, and then goes on. If Holland wants to say something to me, he's got to say it to me. It was kind of really contradictory, I mean, go ahead, Josh.
I have a couple things I want to add here with also quotes from him. On Dan Cleary, if he's on one leg again like he was last year, he can't play on our team. If he's on two legs, he can help us win. And here's more on the contract. Ken Holland is at the lake. Mike Babcock is at the lake. Neither party is concerned at all, but we'll get it done. That's Babcock on the contract.
Nice. Sorry.
But it sounds like some of those comments that there's maybe. Am I reading too much into it when I say that I think there's maybe a little problem with both guys?
No, but Babcock has been coy with the media regarding his contract since May. Since the rumors came out about the Leafs possibly firing Carlisle and the connection with Shanahan to bring Babcock to Toronto, which I never thought had any validity. But maybe a year down the line, if the contract runs out and they fire Carlisle, who knows? I mean, maybe the stars align. But I'm telling you right now. I mean, he has contributed to this with the way he's treated it. You either, say, I want to stay in Detroit long term, or you say, I'm going to play out my contract. And I think his coyness has contributed to this. So, I mean, it's, whatever.
Sometimes you should just use injuries as an excuse. That's what I'm going to say. I mean, just get off. I mean, they had tons of injuries last year. This team was devastated with injuries. And big players too in key times. I mean, and they still managed to make the playoffs. I just think that you have to. I mean, it sounds like when you talk too much like this, you get yourself in trouble. That's all I can say.
He was very un-Babcock-like, though, guys.
Very. I mean, extremely, and that's really passive-aggressive. And really, I mean, something obviously triggered him. Something triggered him to go nuts like that. Because
maybe he was hoping that they were going to get a player that they didn't get. And maybe it is Dan Boyle, like Mike was just saying. I think it's the pressure of. I think that he's been pretty open about the fact that he might not be back next year to people inside the organization. I think that, and that's gotten around the NHL. It's not as if he was on a one-year deal, but it's been very almost assumed by many people that this is it. And I do think that affected everything. I do think that affected players who wanted to go there because you don't know what's coming next, and I don't know. I think that's we'll see. We'll see for sure. But that's good stuff, Josh. Well, we're gonna get going, guys. The one question that Matthias has been asking: Galchenyuk, Pacioretty, Gallagher, Beaulieu, Tenorti, Esteban, Price. Are the Habs untouchables? And do I agree? I don't agree with that list at all. And not that. I mean, I just don't think that. I think like I said, untouchables to me are players like Stamkos, Claude Giroux, people like that. I just think you can't. I mean, Pacioretty might be the closest. Subban and Price are definitely untouchables. Okay, but beyond that, Pacioretty might be the closest. The other guys, I mean, Tenorti is going to be good, but Galchenyuk is going to be good, but I'm not convinced that they're all really going to be. They shouldn't be all untouchables if you want to make that team better. That's all I can say. I mean, you got to move something to get something. That's where it's at. All right, so Josh can be followed at Josh Rimmer Hockey on Twitter. I can be followed at Eklund, and Mike can be followed at Mike in Buffalo. And we'll be back tomorrow. We may have a guest tomorrow. I'm working on a guest tomorrow.
So until then, remember, guys, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Sorry about not taking more questions today, but we're running out of time, and my computer is not charging. So I'm down to 6% up here on my computer, and that'll take the whole podcast down, guys. So we'll talk to you about tomorrow. We'll do a lot more. We'll do a whole bunch of questions tomorrow, guys. Thanks a lot. Take care. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. See you soon.
Yeah, I posted the.
Hold on. We're still live.
1 second. I have to run.